And now, stand-up community subscribers and listeners from around the globe, it's time to stand up with Pete Dominick on vacay.
Hello and welcome to episode, I don't know what this is because I'm on vacation. It's Stand Up with Pete Dominick LITE. Each day this week I'm interviewing one special guest, and today I'm very happy to be doing something very new and original and something I've not done here with the podcast or the show in general, which is share a listener's life experience so that we can all understand her and folks that are struggling in similar ways as she is with her weight. My friend Kim Kelly has been a longtime listener and subscriber of the show, and we've talked several times and gotten to know her pretty well, and she told me that she wanted to talk publicly about her struggle with weight gain and weight loss and how she's dealt with it throughout her life. She's actually lost over 100 pounds 3 separate times in her life, and as you'll find out here, she is heavier than she's ever been. She just turned 57 years old, and she's left her high-stress job to commit to her health. So she's in a very interesting and important part in her life. This is a very encouraging community of listeners. Anybody that wants to encourage Kim or contact her, you can contact me and I'll send it along. But I thought this would be a good thing to do to help those of us who haven't struggled with weight issues, understand those who do, as well as learn from what Kim has done and how she thinks. And we had a great conversation. I really enjoy talking to her. Her honesty and vulnerability and trust in me to do this really came through, and I'm very happy to share this experimental conversation, which is to take a listener and share their own struggle. I've done elements of this before, but never fully committed to a conversation, I think, the way I did today with Kim and the way she really did with me. I'm so proud of her and impressed with her courage to do this. And so here is the great conversation I had with Kim Kelly in Oregon, longtime listener and supporter, talking about all of the issues surrounding weight loss and gain and health and body image and self-esteem and you name it. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's support her. Here we go. Okay, here she is, Kimberly Kelly. Welcome to Stand Up. I'm so excited to have this conversation, and I'm really impressed with your ambition to have it. It was your idea, and I'm very excited to have the opportunity to ask you some questions. Thank you.
No, thank you, Pete. Thanks for setting up this opportunity.
So I thought we might start by talking about your childhood. I think it's really important. You told me in one of our conversations recently about your mom, and that your mom struggled, I think you said, with similar issues, right?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that. But,
it always is, yeah.
Sure, I can start with, so I was raised in upstate New York, so near Lake George, where your daughters go to camp in Glens Falls, to a middle-class family. I would say lower middle class, but, solid middle class. We had a white picket fence, white house. My parents were young, 20 when they got married, 22 when they had me. Then my brother followed me. So, and, it was the kind of typical 1970s life, watched Saturday morning cartoons, ate a lot of cereal, had really a good upbringing. As far as my mother and her challenges, she actually, ironically, was super skinny as a teenager and as a young parent, to the point where she had to have special milkshakes to put on weight. But as she aged, we used to joke that it was through osmosis, through being married to my dad's side of the family, which is all heavy, that she kind of picked it up through osmosis. So by middle age, she was quite heavy. But her challenges as I was growing up had more to do with mental health. She was diagnosed with bipolar, but looking back, it's questionable, was that really the right diagnosis? But certainly she had challenges as we were growing up.
Would you say like your home life was happy, troubling, good?
It was fundamentally overall, I'd say it was good and fun, except when there were episodes when mom had, periods where she might get manic and, just get really loud and yelling and want and say and do crazy things.
How was school? You know, we're talking about family.
School for me.
For you.
So school for me was kind of a mix. So I was a very good student. So I was, tapped pretty early as being quite, smart and put in the more accelerated.
I'm a New York State. Were you were G and T, gifted and talented?
I wasn't not that high.
You weren't that. Did you have that though? Because I remember they labeled.
No, I don't think we had that.
I thought that was like we would talk about those kids. They're like, oh, he's in gifted and talented. Like those two words are such accolades. Like gifted and talented. What does that make the rest?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of it's sad the labels we put on people so young and how that can drive their lives.
Lucky for Fred Marty, I think that's his name. He was always gifted and talented. I think he's done well. Anyway, so you were.
So I still am very introverted. I mostly kept to myself. I didn't really have a lot of friends in school. I was a voracious reader as a youngster and just always had real thick books with me. The first time I had that I recall, well, I shouldn't say that. So I was always a little bit of an outsider, a little bit of a loner. So I got picked on a little bit, but mostly I just absorbed myself into my books. And I wasn't a heavy kid. I was pretty active as a kid. It was when I hit puberty, which I guess I hit a little younger than most. So my first recollection of when my weight really became an issue was because I started developing breasts early. And I got picked on by the girls in the classroom. I remember getting trapped in the back of the room and having them snapping my bra and just being obnoxious to the point where my parents took me out of the public school and sent me to the Catholic school where they had gone. They were high school sweethearts. They had gone to the Catholic school. And so they switched me to there.
Was that better?
In fifth grade. So
was that, wait, what were the girls like? What did the girls make fun of that you had?
That I was wearing a bra at all and
isn't that a good thing?
They'd trap me in the back, like where the cubbies were, where you hung your coats and put your boots. And one would stand and snap my bra. And then I'd swing around to confront her and the other one would do it. And I mean, that's what I remember, but I know there was more to it, but that's what I really remember.
Visualizing that as like such a mean girl. That's so sad and awful. But I will say, I got to admit it. I snapped a girl's bra once. She turned around and looked at me with a look that made me realize I should never have done that and should definitely never do it again. She didn't say anything. I remember it like it was yesterday. Turned around and looked at me with this disapproving, I was like, I thought it was funny and it's not, and that's your body and I'm going to not do that ever again. But I remember feeling like she had to tell me though. But anyway, sorry. I feel like I needed to admit that. Don't want to be above it. But so then you go to this other school and did then things. Well,
again, I was pretty quiet. So I stuck to myself, didn't make a lot of friends. The next thing that was really impactful that still, I don't want to say haunts me, that still seems like a strong word, but still bothers me today is I was in 8th grade. Didn't really have many friends to speak of. By then I was chunky. I wasn't obese like I am now, but I was overweight, but not looking back, I would kill to be that, that small, but I felt really heavy. I remember sitting in classrooms and just assuming everyone in the room is thinking how fat I am, like just living with that knowledge. But what happened in 8th grade in particular was two fellows who later became friends, ironically, but not then. We had one classroom where there were liftable chalkboards. So the teacher could write on the chalkboard and then lift it up and start writing on another one and keep the notes above. Yep. So what a couple of them did, and in my memory, it seems like they did it a million times, but I think in reality, it might've been 5, 6, 7 times, is they would go into the classroom ahead of time, draw a stick figure of a fat person with an arrow and my name pointing to it underneath, so that when the teacher lifted the board up in the middle of the class, there it was. Oh. Obviously that's, really hurtful. And, so then the whole room snickering and the teacher was kind of clueless. But what really bothered me more than anything it was one of the messages that I got early on, being that just because someone's a teacher or an adult or a boss or a parent doesn't mean they know everything or they're all good or they're all caring. So obviously I got really paranoid about this. And I remember running to the classroom ahead, right, to lift up the board to see if there was anything underneath so I could cross it out. And having the teacher he was there and just laugh at me. Like he didn't do anything about it. He just laughed. And that was horribly painful. Right. I mean, the teachers are supposed to be there for you, and he definitely wasn't.
So you then became friends with these dudes who did that?
Well, eventually, actually, what I remember was, there were two guys, and one of them wore glasses, which I didn't at the time, and the other one had a real some kind of a skin condition that made, I mean, he didn't just have acne. He was completely broken out on his face all the time. And I just wasn't the type of person to pick on people, right? Even though I was getting picked on. But I remember, and I don't remember how long after all that. I mean, they didn't do it forever. Like I said, it was maybe 5-6 times, but at some point, just stealing up my courage and saying something about 4 eyes and pizza face. And that kind of fixed it, right? It was, even though it was super uncomfortable for me, they took it more as kind of a laugh. And in a way, it was like, okay, she's okay. I mean, it's just one of those odd things. And then, eventually we were, by 10th grade, I did have a cadre of friends, and they were 2 of them. And I still see them on Facebook. So
Are you close with your brother, you said?
Yeah, my brother and I, just by nature of, so we're 21 months apart. So, by nature of our age, we're close. And then, like I said, there were times when my mother, could be erratic. And so we'd find kind of comfort or solace with each other. So
I do want to try to draw, like a therapist, the connection that you think there might be with all the, emotional stuff and eating and body image, whatever. But I think one thing that's really been most interesting that you've made the point of to me before, and everybody at our hangout last night, I think is a really good point, which is you have lost 100 pounds several times before or something like that. And I'll let you explain that. I'll let you explain how much and when. But I think that what that says to me, it says to anybody, you know exactly what works for your body and your mind to lose weight. You know what works. And so it's not for anybody to tell you, because I know a little from being a personal trainer, which is that everybody is an individual when it comes to their health, their weight loss, what works, diet, because so much of it is in your mind and your schedule and what you can afford. There's all kinds of things in terms of.
Absolutely.
So everybody is very specific. And in your case, you've succeeded many times before. You know what works. And I think that's a really interesting jumping off point, just so that people realize what you've accomplished in the past. And then also talking about why you want to go for it again, knowing how challenging it is. So talk to us about your past weight loss. What is the issue? Like, how does it make you feel? Like, talk about your feelings around your weight and your body image in a little bit before we get to that. Sorry, I should have asked you that first.
No, so I think, again, from puberty on, once I started getting heavy, I've certainly always thought of myself as heavy and heavier than I was. I mean, I would have people say, you're not as big as you think you are. That was back then. I am definitely as big as I think I am now. So I always had this notion that I was too big, and I needed to take it off. Right. So, I should also add just to the story. So I was diagnosed in 5th grade with asthma. So exercising has always been an issue as well. I was active as a kid, but sometimes winter weather, or certainly the leaves in the fall, could be really impactful and prevent me from being as active as I might otherwise be. So that's played into all this too, is, people talk about, well, you got to get exercise, but if you can't go outside and breathe, then that limits some of your options. But anyway, this is what's interesting, is I've always, all my life, even though I picture myself as heavy and often heavier than I am, I also always envisioned that I could be thinner, not a model thin or anything like that. Like, I don't aspire to be some crazy thin stick of a thing. I just want to be a healthy weight. I always envisioned that I could get there. It was just a matter of doing it. And so I did it. I did it in my well, I shouldn't say I never got to goal weight, but I got to 100-pound loss 3 different times. So in my late 20s, in my late 30s, and in my late 40s. And so the last round wasn't that long ago. I turned 57 yesterday. It was like, I want to be this weight by 50, right? So now at 57, now I can say, okay, I want to be this weight by 60. So it's just because I don't think it was planned that way. It was just the way it worked out in my life. And generally it was because it often played into what was going on with my jobs. So as when work was fairly stable and fairly stress free, then I could use the extra energy it takes to lose weight or to exercise more or I want to be careful because as the Zoom folks said last night, it's not just about weight. And I understand all that, but it takes energy to be like, I'm going to write down all my food. I'm going to plan ahead and have healthy snacks available. I'm going to resist when I'm feeling really stressed and just want to fill my face with, I'm a crunchy, salty, fatty person. So chips, that kind of thing to soothe, right? Because I definitely self-soothe with food. And so when typically my work life is fairly stable, then I can turn that excess energy and put it into myself and lose the weight. But the reason I've yo-yoed back this time is over the last 6 years-ish, it was a combination of my mother becoming incapacitated to the point where I had to get guardianship for her, plus some real challenges where I worked that continue to this day. And so all that, I didn't have the energy to give to paying attention to food, if that makes any sense.
So it all makes sense. It's something obviously you think a lot about. You've got, again, a lot of experience with what works. But before we get to that, what are the health issues that a person deals with more specifically that you have dealt with? Do they come and do they go with the weight gain and loss? Are they chronic? How comfortable do you even feel talking about them?
No, that's fine.
Okay. And you also mentioned, just the bigger you get, the more uncomfortable it is talking about, you said yesterday about your seatbelt. So talk to me a little bit about like the health issues and how physically it affects your life.
Right. So I've done what you'll hear about, right, in news stories or on this topic, is that you yo-yo and you gain more than you lost. So every time I regained the 100 pounds, it was 100 plus. So in my 30s, it didn't matter as much. In my 40s, I still could be fairly active, could still do things. So, there was an impact and I felt conscious of it all the time. But this round is different because this time, partly because of my age, so things are starting to break down. It bothers my knees more. It bothers my back more. But I'm also just the biggest. And I don't know that I'm quite ready to share what I weigh, but I will at some point. I might have to lose some and then I'll share where I started from. But it's way, way, way too high and far higher than I'm 50 pounds heavier than my last high point, if you will. And this time it's hugely impactful. So I worry about going places, whether or not I'll fit in the seats. This time of year, everybody's got lawn chairs out. Even if I fit in the lawn chair, it might collapse. My seatbelt, I can't, as of 2 weeks ago, I can get it across my waist, but the strap that goes across your chest just cuts too much into my neck. So I can't use it. If I were to get on a plane now, I would likely buy 2 seats. But I don't even want to get on a plane. The thing that's most impactful now, though, is so my lungs, again, because of the asthma, and now they've diagnosed me with COPD, my lungs are really bad, which makes walking even just across a room difficult. But it's a combination because literally 6 years ago, I was walking 10,000 steps a day. And now I can't really walk 100 without everything aching and getting winded. So it's why I'm kind of like, I have to lose weight, right? Like I'm not going to have a quality of life. I like to travel, introverted or not. I still I like to go see new places and do new things. I really want to go to Australia. I really want to go to Japan. But right now I can't even really go to a local museum and walk around because I can't walk more than so long without everything aching and hurting and needing to sit down. So this is not the way I want to spend my final, couple decades of my life, is essentially, unable to go anywhere or having to revert to using an electric chair or something. That's just not what I want to do. But I'm also worried because now I'm postmenopausal, which everyone says it gets harder to lose weight. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's a new layer that complicates your past experience is losing weight, because it's like, oh, even if I do the things I did in the past, how is...
It's not necessarily going to work. Maybe it will, but or not even necessarily.
Either way, if the idea is that it's more challenging. I think that it sounds to me like, again, what you've said in the past is, by the way, just so people know, in case they heard Kim say her birthday was yesterday, I knew that. We wished her happy birthday. So it wasn't just ignoring that. I'm sensitive to someone hearing that and being like, what a dick. You didn't even wish her happy birthday. So... But you have said in the past, too, that you've done it before, and it's like, do you really want to go through this again? Do you really want to put your suit, like, what is the light at the end of the tunnel? Australia, Japan, anything?
Kayaking.
Okay, yeah. What are the other things?
I really want to go kayaking.
Yeah, what are the other things that you'd like to do right now that you can't? You feel like you can't?
Well, I don't even feel like, so I have, 3 housemates that live with me. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like I'm even contributing to like fixing meals, because even just standing up in the kitchen to chop vegetables for too long is painful. And that's just awful. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And I'm just so shocked. Like, if you had told me a year and a half ago that I would be at this weight, I would have said, no way, I'll never let myself get there. Mm-hmm. But I think it was the combination of the pandemic and then again, some stuff at work, which, for your listeners, I'm actually leaving this job. They're working on finding a replacement for me. Right now, the goal is by the end of September, I'm out. And there's many reasons I'm leaving, but one of the most critical ones is this fact that I need to get healthy, and I don't think I can do it in my current job.
Yeah, that I think that for folks listening to this conversation, that's super helpful to know, because you've talked about what has made it harder and distracting, and the challenges that we all have, all of us. To tackle, the everyday stuff that comes up makes certain things harder to do. So you're taking this, making this healthy choice, and you're really going to dedicate time and energy that you need, that you said in the past you haven't had, or you've been, that's been taken from you to this. So that's helpful for people to know as we kind of encourage you and wish you the best and support you. So that's my next question. What does your current support system look like in terms of this challenge? Who do you feel comfortable talking with about this issue? How many people? How intimate do you get with them? You're talking about it openly and publicly now, which is amazing for 1,000 reasons. But your everyday support system, what's it like?
My everyday support system would basically be my housemates, although, yesterday was my birthday and we had cupcakes, right? So
their investment is different. They live with you, and so there's different concerns that they might have. So I don't know if that's... But
otherwise... I don't, my mother certainly would have been, but she passed in May. My brother is super supportive. He is really, really, he owns a bicycle shop. And so he's very much into getting people on bikes and healthy, et cetera. And so he's a supporter. But he's down in California.
Can we plug his bicycle shop?
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Topanga Creek Outpost.
I imagine that's in Topanga Creek.
It's in Topanga Canyon. Yep.
All right. So if anybody's around there, check out.
And he does leatherwork goods as well. He's trying to diversify because the bicycle industry is super challenging right now. There's no bikes available to sell.
Yeah. So I was going to say they're doing so well, but yeah, they're like a lot of other things. What's his name though?
Chris.
Topanga
Creek Outpost.
There you go. Okay. So.
And I think he's a Patreon now. Once I told him I was doing this, I think he signed up.
Awesome.
But he doesn't listen, I'll be honest, because he's busy.
How dare he? But he's just supporting me without listening? Oh, my God.
He'll listen to this.
I'm just a charity case for him. Chris, you better start listening. Come on, man. I'll talk whatever you want to talk about.
He'll talk your ear off. He actually would probably be a good interview just to talk about kind of being a small business owner through the pandemic.
All right. Tell Chris to reach out. What your support system is... And
then I want to add to this, my boss, my immediate supervisor.
Okay.
I've been pretty open with him. He's been super, super supportive, and on the one level has said he doesn't want me to leave, but recognizes that it is the healthiest thing I can do for myself.
Okay. So that helps me just understand. Again, I'm not doing therapy here. I'm just trying to understand. I don't know what to tell you. Frankly, you know what works in the past. So I'm just trying to learn, and I'm trying to help, as you said, others. Part of why you're doing this is, which I think is really great, it's a public service, what you are doing. And for a lot of different reasons. So I think that's very important. And so anybody listening, it really is helpful and illuminates, your struggle and anybody that struggles with this issue. My next question, though, is I'm fascinated by this, always have been. Everybody listening has a relationship with food. Everybody. What is yours?
It's definitely to self-soothe. Well, I mean, and we grew up in the 60s and 70s. So it was sugary cereals and, whenever Charlie Brown Christmas came on or any of those things, we had popcorn and Coca-Cola. That was the special treat. We go to Friendlies after school plays or performances. So food was always a reward. We always had dessert. Again, we certainly weren't wealthy and money was sometimes tight, but there was always second helpings available, snacks when we came home from school. So food we lived in the hometown of both families. So there were always family get-togethers and this is typical, lots of food and lots of, not unlike a lot of people, food becomes a way to celebrate, a way to soothe. Oh, you're feeling bad. Let's have a bowl of ice cream, kind of thing. So that's,
by the way, I think that's the answer. I don't know what I'm doing here in this conversation, but I'm loving it. I'm loving it. But I think you gave the best answer. The answer to the question that everybody has to answer, what is your relationship to food? The answer is, or I should have asked it, what was your childhood relationship with food? Because our parents, like my relationship with food is way different than my daughter's because my parents didn't put a premium on it. Like a lot of parents, I'm not making, but my wife is first generation Sicilian. So they're insane people about food. Like food is everything. And they have horrible judgments of so many things. Hilarious. So you know how that is. So your childhood relationship
and the special recipes that carry on.
Sure. Yeah. But whatever your parents introduced to you is all you knew for a very long time. And we all have stories about, oh my God, I went over to my friend's house and guess what they eat or what they serve you in school, but it's fairly limited. So that's I'm just saying that's an interesting, everybody has that. That should be the answer. What did their parents give them? So as you got free will, Kim, and as you were, how did your relationship with food develop in your 20s and you're living on your own and school and all of that?
Sure. So living on my own. Well, first of all, just living on your own, right? So yeah, I think most people in those early years, it's just, wow, I can buy what I want when I want it and eat when I want it. And there's no restrictions. I wouldn't say I went crazy. I've always been kind of frugal with money. So sometimes money will rein me in. Yep. But I would cook for myself. And in those early years would eat, would cook kind of what my mom traditionally would have made, which is some kind of meat, potato, and vegetable. I don't know that I went bonkers per se. One thing, though, I will add to my relation with food is, and this seems to go back as long as I can remember, is I don't feel satisfied unless I feel overfull. So I may eat a quote normal meal and I want another whole helping, right? I just don't feel content until I'm almost to the point of being uncomfortable.
What does content mean? What does that mean? Like, I don't even know if
Well, I want to keep eating. Like, I'm not content to stop eating until I feel fuller and fuller, more so than in reality, my body really
interesting.
needs.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. What else about along these lines about relationship with food and cooking?
Well, then really the rest of my adult life has been, you can almost map it 5 years of, for whatever reason, not paying enough attention and gaining, and then up to 5 years losing, right? Going through so then focusing on, okay, I'm going to document my meals and I'm going to, all the stuff. So it's been the yo-yo that has been you look at my health record and it's just this giant W, up big, really massive ups and downs of weight. But so what I was doing with food depended on whether I was in a losing stage or not.
So when we talk about how you have lost weight and the time, because I think that's really important. Dr. Hummel and others experts say you can't lose weight quickly. Even if you can, it's really unhealthy to do. It's not realistic. Right. And so it sounds like in the past you've done it the healthy way, that you've lost a lot of weight over a long period of time. So you lost this much weight at this age, and how long did it take you? And then I really do want to get to like what's worked. I'm really, as a personal trainer, as just a human, I'm interested in that.
So curious as to what worked. So I've been lucky. Again, we'll see in my postmenopausal state if it holds this time. But typically, if I first of all, I tend to go like from the extreme to, okay, now I'm going to behave, right? So no more chips, no more this, no more that. I'm going to count my calories. And I'm going to exercise more, right? So I want to be clear to the listeners that I understand there's more to it than it's more about than just weight, and that having a healthy lifestyle. And because I was often quite like probably cardiovascularly pretty healthy at times, even though I, as the doctors always say, carry extra weight, right? That's the term they tend to use. For those of you who carry extra weight.
It's very polite. Very polite.
Yes. So I understand that, and that it needs to be a holistic approach. But at the end of the day, it really, for me at least, is more about food than anything else, right? Like it's just not going to come off.
I think the research says, sorry to jump in here, Kim, but I mean, I do think it's important that the vast majority of the research says that weight loss and gain, generally speaking, is about diet and not exercise. Exercise is so good for so many reasons, especially mentally. But for weight loss and weight gain, it's much more to do with your diet. I think most people, So,
right.
Yeah. And by the way, and just again, this is the thing that always pisses me off a little bit. I mean, I'll take all the credit, whatever anybody wants to compliment me. But like when people are like, oh, how do you stay so skinny? Like for me, like I'm positive my genetics are a huge thing. Like I have a high metabolism. I eat pretty well, but I don't, like my dad, there's a reason why my dad and my brother and I are pretty slim and small, and genetics. So metabolism and weight gain and weight loss is very, very genetic based. And so some people are like, how do you do it? It's not, to me, it's not similar, dissimilar to me saying, how come I'm bald and you have hair? It's like, I went bald.
Right. And it definitely, so on my dad's side of the family, so he was the oldest of six, two brothers and three sisters, and all of the sisters have the same shape I had. They're not. So if I go back to like high school, in fact, there's a graduation picture, a graduation party picture from high school of me with two of my aunts, one of whom was only 6 years older than me. So we're not that far apart in age. And we all have the same pear shape, right? We have big butts, big butts and thighs. And it's called the Kelly ass, the K-A. Because
that's your last name.
Because all the women have the Ka, so it's very much genetic in our family. And my father called that picture 3 tons of fun.
Well, that's hilarious. So is there a lot of jokes like this going on in the family?
Sure, because especially on his side, they're very sarcastic in their humor anyway.
What are those jokes?
Nothing's off limits.
Yeah,
so.
I actually love that in a close knit family where everybody gets theirs and hopefully gives theirs. But what's that? Is everybody just constantly joking like that about that? Or does it come up a lot, or are people sensitive?
Well, I mean, I'm not, I'm out in Oregon now, and they're still all back in upstate New York. So I don't see folks anymore, but certainly through, so I hardly ever see anybody anymore. But it was pretty steady. It was pretty, although one thing I will bring up another kind of thing that was hurtful.
Yeah.
I'm not trying, and I know, I should say, I know people, when they say things, they intend it with love, or they intend it in a positive way. Mm-hmm. But I do remember I think I was probably a couple years out of high school. So I might have been home I spent 2 years in college and then did other things, but it might have been like one of the summers I was home, but I went to a party with my dad's side of the family. My grandmother was still alive. I was not obese at that point. In fact, I had earned my water safety instructor card from the Red Cross and was a lifeguard at the women's pool at the college.
Wow.
Okay. I swam laps, 100 laps every whatever. So I was in okay shape, but I was heavy, right? I had the Ka, a little bit of a stomach. That's the other thing I should say. Back then, I would be a medium in my top and an extra large in my bottom, right? So but what I wanted to say is I remember my grandmother, again, well-meaning, coming up to the picnic table, putting her arm around me and whispering in my ear, "You would be so lovely if you just lost a little weight." And it was like, I didn't need to, I know that, right? I know it was well-intentioned, but I obviously 30 something years later, I still remember that because it was hurtful. And it's not like I don't know. It's not like I didn't live in my body every day. Intellectually, I understand it was not intended to be hurtful,
right? But
it was very hurtful.
Well, of course, and especially I mean, those are the types of comments that probably are more likely to be made to women, to girls too, right? Like, does an overweight boy have his grandma? You'd be so much more handsome if you less. I mean, I'm sure it happens, but I bet you it's because women are supposed to be beautiful, and men, it's just like. It's just all a trap, and it's
we're
changing.
Supposed to be sticks, yeah. And no matter what, I never would have been the stick. The KA is there no matter what, right?
The KA is hilarious.
The KA.
I have a dick joke to make, but I'm not even going to do it. So genetic. Everybody has their genetics, Kim. So in the past, how have you lost weight?
Counting calories for sure. So but also. Like I've never, maybe once in a while I've done a fad thing. Like, eat only bananas for a day and then eat only. Yeah. But those have only been literally 1 week, some things that I tried on and off. But when I really was losing weight, I did it. For the era, right? Because they learn more things all the time, was, just cutting out the crap, right? So no more chips, no more fast food, cutting out the sugar, and just... Or I should say cutting out. You can't cut it all out or you go mad, right? You got to... That's
important to be honest.
But it was part of the calculation, right?
Sure.
2 Hershey's Kisses at the end of the day if I was good, right? So, I tried Weight Watchers at one point. It really wasn't for me. I know one of my turns, I want to say it was maybe in the 30s. I had a little, oh golly, what was that guy's name?
Richard Simmons.
Yes, Richard Simmons.
I can't believe
I think I still have it somewhere. He had this little card thing where you, depending on how much weight you had to lose. So this was so it was calibrated because you don't want to cut too low. Like I can't just cut to 1,000 calories a day because my body would likely go into, like it would try to protect itself. Like you have to kind of bring it down, or at least that's how as I understand it. But it had it was like this little card holder with these little slots, and you could click the slots. You'd click, like it would have 7 vegetable helpings and 3 meats and whatever. And you would close the little doors. And to me, that was really helpful to just, because I'm like, even in my real life, I'm a checklist person, right? Like I like to check it off so I can click the little door. Okay, this is done. And when all the little doors were done, there's no more food for today. I found that helpful.
That's a thing that, these are just things that, works for you. That's what we're talking about. It's got to be personal.
That works for me.
Yeah. What else works? So counting calories is the basic best thing that you can do. Counting
calories, but also being sure to have a balance, right? Again, not just I did try, I guess it was Atkins or whatever it was back at one point where you're just eating meat pretty much. And I did something to my eyesight.
So I think there's a lot of things that happen.
I stopped doing that because I was like,
you'll lose weight, but you'll turn into a pirate.
Yeah.
You'll also lose your vision. Yeah, there's some, I think, pretty bad outcomes with that diet, is my understanding. But so that's helpful. The other thing that's really key for me, and this is again where the prep happens and why COVID could be challenging, and when I was super busy with my mother and work, it become challenging, is at least in the beginning, for the first couple months, is to have what I call healthy snack alternatives like everywhere. So I'm still working from home in COVID. So it's like, I should have some here in my room, some in my car, some in the refrigerator. If I'm back in the office, some in the office, because I can find often the willpower to resist bad food if there's something else there. But if there's not, I can lose it too quickly. Does that make sense? It makes complete sense. I think it's a great idea.
It's still a struggle, but it's less of a struggle if I have an alternative.
What's an example of an HSA?
Healthy snack alternative.
An HSA.
Well, again, having a mixture. So almonds, although I know they're not good for water, so I'm always a little.
Yeah, but with what you're doing, with what your challenge is, we have to weigh out the challenges. Like the individual choice about climate change isn't making that much of a difference. Like if you cut back on your whatever else over here, like if almonds, you pronounce it in an offensive way, I pronounce it correctly. If almonds are your thing that are your healthy choice, then don't feel guilty about the water.
Yeah.
All right,
bananas, having some meat. Like I don't think, again, I am super, I feel really bad about what's going on with the environment and with animals. Like I get weepy over, slugs being stepped on the sidewalk. So, but I could never be a vegetarian. I need my meat. So having some turkey nearby, sliced turkey, something that gives me that protein fix.
So what about
yogurt?
Those are like some of them. I'm sure there's more ideas for all of this, but those are some of the solutions, some of the things that work. What about like cognitive behavioral therapy stuff, talking to someone? How much of that have you done? Reading books? Again, and staying away from like kind of the fad things to do,
sure.
But still, because part of why your new effort here to talk to me is, and we'll kind of close on this in a moment, but is about accountability. You think accountability to our audience, which, requires no one to do anything, but you're talking publicly about this and then however you want me to handle it and post it, like, hey, Kim wants to give us an update, whatever, we can figure that out. But how has like just other behavioral stuff, therapy, if there's a book or a behavioral thing, emotional work, like how is... I've read like ad nauseum.
Go
ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I've read all the stuff. So obviously I'm only speaking for me, and what everybody, everybody's individual and what works for them is different. I don't generally... I mean, part of it is, again, when there is like a desire, say something's gone wrong or gone right? Because food is also a reward, right? So, yay, I got a raise. Let's go out to eat, right? Whatever it is, that diverting that, right? So let's go down to the park instead. I mean, I remember in the last throes of my last one, in my office, in my particular department, we would have a potluck for everybody's birthday. And I said, and they knew I was working on my weight. It was obvious I was losing in front of them. So, which is another interesting, we can maybe talk about that another time, how it feels to have people commenting on your weight as you lose it. But what I said is, I don't want to have a potluck. And there was a little indoor mini putt thing close to our office. I said, I want to go do the mini putt instead of eating. I don't want it to be about food. So sometimes it's being and I think that birthday that year, I said, no, let's go. I don't know where we went, but it's so being intentional about not having food be a reward would be something, but also being like, okay, I feel I want to stuff my face with potato chips, but let's instead go down to the library where all the duck ponds are and walk around the pond.
I love that. But I can see anybody's coworkers being like, okay, well, you tell us how putt-putt alone sounds like, because we're going to eat our faces off while you're trying to lose weight.
No, they went along. They supported me. So we had fun.
So that's really interesting too. All of it is. But I do now want to know, like, go ahead and tell me the kind of comment, like when you're losing weight, people make comments. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, why is that a bad thing?
Well, because I've thought about this too.
Sure.
Is because it actually came up interestingly in, so I'm in management where I work. I'm a director. And so we had a supervisor's council, and some of it was like things you shouldn't say to people. And one of them was about, and I remember reading it going, I resemble that remark, but it was like, Joni has lost a lot of weight. What do you say? So I got thinking about it, and this is where it's challenging. As someone who's yo-yoed all my life, right? Yeah. Up and down and up and down and up and down, is that so first of all, people who have not seen me in a long time, so relatives, friends, almost to a person, when they walk up to me, they look me up and down. Like, what is her body do? At least that's my perception of it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes what's interesting is people will say, oh, you look like you've lost weight, when actually I've gained, but they're noticing a change in my body. And so they're commenting on it. But the bigger thing is, and again, people are well-intentioned, is people will say, oh my God, you look great. And I probably do compared to what I was, right? I probably still have more to go. But what I hear is, you didn't used to. Right.
Ooh,
now you look great. Right, and so that when I'm back heavy again and they come up to me and they don't say, oh, you look great. Right. They're in their mind, they're going, oh, God, she gained weight again.
Yes, that's so
on
helpful.
The one hand, but it would also be uncomfortable if if I lose, hopefully when I'm going to be optimistic, when I lose 50 pounds, and if I go back into the office and they notice it, it would be, this is where I'm torn.
Right.
It's like I think what I need them to say is, wow, you've been working hard or something, right? Like there needs to be, I want, part of me wants the acknowledgement.
Sure. Yes.
But I don't want to hear, oh, you look great, because that implies I didn't, which actually I didn't, but it's still hard to hear. Am I?
Absolutely.
Does it make sense? So I feel bad for the well-intentioned person on the other end, because I honestly don't know what to tell them to say.
No, that's very human, and both things can be true. And I think it's just really helpful for people to hear that and to sit with it, and however it whatever happens, and to have your perspective to help me understand that. It's like sometimes people have said to me, I can't relate here with what you're saying, but I just always thought this was funny. With when I lost my hair, people would say, or even now, bald is in. And my joke and my stand-up act was, well, that implies that it won't, it'll be out eventually, right. And I won't have an option. It's a temporary position. Yeah. It will be out, and I'll be bolder even. And
again, obviously people are just.
What do you?
That's how it hits me, but I also understand. Again, there's no malice intended or hurtfulness intended. It just,
without setting any goals, without having expectations. Well, I guess, what are you? I do have to ask, in closing here for this first part of this conversation, let's say this is the beginning of the conversation. What do you want anybody listening to take away from today? And when you talk about, people holding you to account, what if someone heard this and reached out to you? What would be the kind of thing you'd want to hear from them?
Wow. So, I guess I never finished that. So while I understand intellectually and believe it, I don't want to die young, I don't want to die the way my mother did, that I need to lose this weight for me, and that I shouldn't be trying to lose weight for other people. It helps me to have people to report into, because there's just something about, okay, if I'm going to talk to Pete in 2 weeks, then that's another tool in the toolbox for helping to keep away from those chips, right? In addition to having the healthy snack alternative and the go for a walk. Another help is knowing that there's people to report to. What would I want people to say? I think it would just be, you go, girl. And I will admit, so I'll admit this too, Pete, to last night, right? So for those of you who didn't hear, he had a Zoom call and we brought this up and people were offering suggestions. Mm-hmm. And again, well-intentioned. And I'm not upset, but part of me was like, I freaking know that. Don't thin-splain to me, right? You skinny person. I don't need you thin-splaining. And I'm not stupid. I know that. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean I can't get some inspiration or new ideas from people. And again, I don't want anybody who was one of those people last night to feel bad or whatever.
No. I don't think that's the case at all.
Intentioned, but it's I know these things. I've been doing this for 50 years. And so it's a balancing act. So the main thing would be to just encouragement, I think, right, more than anything.
Well, that you will get from this crowd for sure. And so let's wrap it up here. And if anybody has any advice, I think the best way to say it to you is hey, have you ever tried blank? And then you could be like, yep, tried it, works, doesn't work, or for whatever, because they might be asking for themselves too. When, in a way you could be, helpful to other people. Listen, I know it works, what's worked for me, and this might work for you. So I think that's a conversation that could happen as well. So
yeah. And I did also want to throw in, Pete, the other, in addition, obviously I'm selfishly wanting to use your platform to help me stay motivated, right, in a way. But also, I think for those thin people out there, or people that haven't struggled with weight, just to understand, there's still people in this world who are just you just don't have willpower, yep, or, whatever. It's just not that simple. So whether it's just this conversation or if we have a series of them, it would be to help the rest. If you have a heavy person in your life, just understand that it's much more complicated than you may realize.
And that's certainly what motivated me to do this. And it's certainly my curiosity. Last week I talked to a whole bunch of people who, dealt with completely different types of disability, cerebral palsy and a bone disease. And they were advocating for disability, improvements on the SSI. But the point I'm making about that is I don't know what that's like. And so right, I'm always interested in hearing, your experience, and more importantly, to the point you made just now, which I can't make better, which is to help people have empathy and compassion and also encouragement. We've all got our stuff.
we've all got our stuff, and it's so great that you shared yours with us, and I really appreciate it and applaud you, as I know everybody listening does as well, and I'm excited to see whatever happens. I've got no expectations. Whatever you want to do, you and I will obviously keep talking, and whenever you want to, talk publicly, and if people want to reach out, certainly subscribers, comment on the post, on today's post, and if you want me to share your email or stuff privately, we'll figure out ways for people to connect with Kim. And if you live in Oregon, right?
Yep. I live outside of Portland.
Then that's where Kim is at. Kim, congratulations. I love talking to you. I've loved every time we've talked. I greatly appreciate your support of me over my career and you doing this with me today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. And just to say, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't trust you. But I've been listening to you long enough to know what a good and decent guy you are. So
well, that's thoughtful, but I do plan to sabotage it just for better ratings, for more subscribers. I'm going to exploit it in every way, and I am psyched to continue this. And I really value what you've shared with us. Thank you.
Stand up. Okay, there you go, listener Kimberly Kelly. If you want to contact her, you can reach out to me. You can also leave comments here on the if you're a subscriber, you can leave a comment on the post from today's show. If you're a Patreon subscriber, if you're not, why aren't you? What are you waiting for? Go to patreon.com/Pete Dominick and sign up now. Again, this is a light version of the podcast. I didn't want to not post. I'm a little bit OCD is really overdoing it, but compulsive about wanting to post stuff each and every day. I so appreciate your support. Thank you so much for it. Tomorrow I've got a great conversation with comedian David Feldman, but now for me it's back to vacation. Thanks, guys.
But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for loss, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.